Hello and welcome to another Board Crazy review. I am D, and today I am reviewing Three Kingdoms Redux with these two.
I'm Graham.
And I'm Will Woo.
Okay.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Anyway, before we start reviewing Three Kingdoms Redux, we're going to run my introduction to the game so that you have an idea of how it plays if you have not watched our gameplay video. Here that goes. Three Kingdoms Redux is a game for 3 players designed by Christina Zhen and Keng Leong and published by Capstone Games and Starting Player. In this game, each player takes control of one of the 3 legendary houses that vied for control over Han China around 200 AD. To begin, players sit on their designated side of the board and take all components of their color. The setup of the game is asymmetrical to reflect history, meaning, for example, that the Wei player starts the game with the most generals at their disposal, but also the fewest resources and state enhancement cards. Once the setup is complete, the game plays out over a series of up to 12 rounds, and each round, aside from the last, is comprised of 3 phases, starting with the conflict phase. The first thing that can happen during the conflict phase is the recruiting of new generals, which happens at the beginning of rounds 3, 5, and 9. The number of generals drawn and kept by each player is different each time, as detailed in the rulebook, allowing the number of generals controlled by each side to even out as the game goes on. In rounds without general recruitment, the first thing that happens in the conflict phase is the selection of the alliance space. An alliance is formed every round between the players on the 2 and 3 spaces on the bid track. These places are determined by the number of successful bids made in the previous round. The player in last place on the bid track chooses one of 10 available common bidding action spaces on the board to make the alliance action space for the round. This means that the bids on that space by the allied sides will be added up in opposition of any bids by the other side, and the allied sides both get use of that space should they win. Once this space is chosen, the players then bid for the use of the other action spaces on the board. Bidding is done by placing general tokens face up on action spaces, one at a time in bid order, until all generals have been placed. Each general has administration and combat values, and each common bidding space has a bidding criterion of one of those 2 traits. The side with the highest total bid in the indicated criterion wins the use of that action space during the next phase, Resolution. At the start of the Resolution phase, all losing bid tokens are returned to their players, with the exception of the popular support tokens, which get returned to the general supply. Next, the bidding order for the current round becomes the action order, and the bidding order for the next round is determined by the number of successful bids made in the current round, meaning the player with the most successful bids will not be part of the next alliance. Then, players in action order do all the actions allowed by the bids that they won, in whichever order they choose. We'll go into detail on how the actions actually work as we play the game, but just know that they're used to recruit and train armies, improve your domestic development, improve tribal relations, and increase in rank, potentially all the way up to Emperor. The game ends after the resolution phase of a round in which any one of the 4 endgame conditions has been met. These include the game being in round 12, a player reaching level 5 on both their farms and marketplaces, a player gaining promotion to Emperor, and a player stationing a 5th general at a border location. Once the last resolution phase is completed, players tally up their victory points, which can be earned in 9 different ways, and determine who the winner is. Alright boys, Three Kingdoms Redux. Will, is this our longest gameplay video on the channel?
Raw recording wise, I would say it was probably like an hour longer than anything we've ever filmed.
Wow.
I think, yeah, beat out. What was the longest one before that was?
GKR was pretty long.
GKR, I think.
Yeah, it was the longest. It took me the longest to edit this, probably. Because you got to consider, like, if we had to do a review, like the week that this gameplay came out last week, I don't think I would have been able to finish it.
We basically made a feature film, Graham.
It's true.
We should submit it to Sundance. So Three Kingdoms Redux. I think this is a game that unfortunately has been sort of ignored by a lot of people for, probably a number of reasons. Not a whole lot of name recognition here. It's a little, it looks a little intimidating.
Right.
And I don't think it has a ton of visual flair.
Plus
But
the fact that it's only 3 players.
Yes, and it's only 3 players.
Like you can't play it with
Which is
fewer or
more, yeah,
more.
which is great
Less or
for
more?
us.
Is it fewer
That's,
or less?
it'd be fewer or more.
Yes.
You
nailed it.
You
got
got it
it.
right the first
Yeah.
time.
That being said, I think that's a shame because this game is great.
I know.
There is a lot to learn up front.
Right.
That's not untrue, but I think it's very intuitive.
Yeah, once you get it going, like there's a lot of games like that, but Euro style, it's I think pretty typical mechanics. A lot of similar stuff you'd see to other Euro style games. So if you've played any Euro style games, you'll come into this and kind of get a feel of it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so. I think certain people will not enjoy learning it like straight up from the rulebook as the rulebook is formatted right now. Like we heard some things before we played it about how the rulebook is maybe not the most straightforward.
I didn't mind the rulebook, honestly.
Neither did I. I thought it was okay, but there were certain elements like in regards to like developing marketplaces and farms and stuff, and how you utilize those to pay for your troops and stuff that didn't quite understand at first. Yeah. But I agree with you guys that at like a basic thematic level, all the mechanisms in this game like make sense like for what they do, and in that sense, it does make everything like intuitive.
The time to learn in this game is so little compared to how much there is to learn. Compared to other games we've played that are maybe similar in terms of weight. It's just so clever. It's just so everything works so well. It's so well balanced. It's
the way they mix the Euro. I've never seen a Euro style game work so well with its theme.
Yeah, you really
That's true.
kind of
often
feel
theme is secondary in those kind of
especially
games.
in Euro style games.
Yeah, it's like,
and the theme was a massive part of this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you feel like you're kind of in control of a nation.
Exactly.
You have a ton of plates that you're constantly trying to spin, and you have to make sure you can't let too many of them fall, or you're going to lose.
Right.
But you have to kind of let 1 or 2 fall, probably.
You can't focus on everything.
You can't. You have to sort of specialize to some degree. But yeah, you have to, got to make sure you have enough army. You got to make resources flowing. You have to make sure your tribal relations are okay. You're building up your farms. It's like, but it all works.
It all works, yeah. It all makes sense. There's nothing in there that at least I felt like playing through it that was like, this didn't really need to be in here.
No, yeah, exactly. Something superfluous.
Yeah.
What about specific examples of what you have, like, of certain, like, do you guys have specific examples of certain mechanics or mechanisms and, like, how they, like, match up to the theme that you wanted to point out?
Well, like, I love the fact that if you don't focus on your tribal relations, it starts to fall. But, it becomes an important part. You're like, I can let it slide a little bit, and then all of a sudden you're like, crap, I'm really falling behind here. Now I need to focus on this, and it becomes a forefront of your strategy. Like, okay, I got to start building this up. You can never, like that's great in that sense. Also, the way they balance the 3 factions and how, Wei starts off the most powerful. And
in terms of generals, at least.
But but still, I mean, having 2 extra generals from Shu and 1 more general than it becomes very powerful in the beginning, and it just feels like, okay, yeah, we have a big hurdle to overcome as as Wu or Shu in the beginning.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely, I think they do it well with that imbalance.
It's almost like too much to sum up in just a short review here, but
yeah, we're not going to be able to get too in depth on everything we like, or we'll be here for like 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. But
I love the way this game builds too. Early on, when there are fewer generals under players' control, there's not a ton of competition for the different action spaces. There's going to be some, but you don't have to think too hard. Usually there's going to be, a couple free spaces that you can make use of. But as these are like the mid game, and then especially towards the end game, where there's every space is getting,
taken up.
Yeah, and then you really have to start thinking about not just where you want to go, but when you want to go.
Yes.
Because you get, there are times where you kind of maybe want to get in there first, but there are other times where you kind of want to wait and just kind of see, maybe I won't send out my guys to battle yet, because then that might prompt the other player to go in and try to, beat me. Yep. And that's brutal.
Yeah.
Losing your a general in this game is bad. Not losing, but not winning in action.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So towards the end, you really you can heavy strategy, you can really start like messing with people too a little bit. Like
Right.
I'm just gonna push them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna push them to see how they react.
Yeah.
Are they gonna add another general here? Or are they just gonna say take it and do something else? And
Exactly.
It's
It
so
is
fun.
And it's another thing I really loved about the gameplay is it doesn't feel personal when you've been attacked or you're, I don't feel bad attacking someone or in the sense of trying to outbid them, it's a necessary part of this game, and so it kind of hurts when it happens. You're like, crap, but it's like sometimes. At least me, I can hold it. I can take it personally in games. I'm like, what?
No, never.
But this game, it didn't happen.
I think it's, we mentioned earlier how having it be 3 players only is restrictive, but I think one of the better qualities, one of the positive qualities of the 3 players only format is exactly what you said. You can't rest on your laurels and be kind to everyone.
Yeah.
I just like that in a 3-player game, you just have to start messing with everybody else, which is not necessarily the most a lot of Euro games they don't have that at all. You don't really affect. I think 3-player only. I would like to see other designers tinker with that. Because that whole odd number of players means that you're forced into
great for us,
confrontations.
obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing I love about the design of this game is that you can tell the designers came in and said, we're going to focus on putting out a really good, quality game here rather than trying to design for the masses. Because I don't think you're really we'll see a few here and there, but designers or publishers coming in and saying, yeah, we're okay with you just restricting it to 1 player count. It happens more with 2-player count, but a 3-player count game, it's just, things happen where people aren't going to want to buy it because then you always need 3 people to play with. And
no, absolutely. No, I agree. I do think the alliance system is really neat too. That's another way, early on, especially at the other 2 kingdoms, I guess, can sort of make up some of the distance between them and Wei. But also, I mean, as we experienced in some other games, it's also a really good. You can use it to bluff and sort of mess with people.
Yes.
You're in the alliance. You don't necessarily need to be friendly with each other.
Exactly.
You can put the alliance somewhere and then just ignore it.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool mechanic. I think it's good for helping when you need it.
The thing I like about it is that there's designed. It's a design system in the sense that a lot of games that use alliances just say, yeah, you can make alliances, go ahead, help each other, talk to each other, figure out strategies that you want to do, especially more, I guess, war-style type games. But in this game, they're just saying, yeah, there is an alliance system, but there's mechanics around it. It's only used in a certain sense. Yeah, you can use it or you don't. It's, I can't, talk to Will and be like, hey, you want to team up on D here? It's not that kind of alliance.
I do enjoy games like that where you can kind of wheel and deal with other players. But
right,
it wouldn't work as well in this very strict 3-player scenario. Yeah.
And I also think thematically, given the history of the actual war, I like that they kept the alliances consistent with how the actual history was. In the sense that, you couldn't have, you can't do what you guys just said, the freewheeling negotiation, because it wouldn't make sense for Wei, for instance, who starts off with, the most power, to go to Shu and be let's mess up. There would be no logical reason for them to do that historically. So the game goes out of its way to be look, the 2 characters that aren't doing the best in bidding are, the characters that'll be in the alliance. They're the ones who need each other the most. Just like how in the war, that ended up being the case with the 3 fighting factions.
I guess in terms of the theme, I mean, we're not experts on the 3 Kingdoms period. I think Will and I have passing familiarity with it. Graham is
before this, I had no familiarity.
So
with it.
we recognize some of the names and what have you. I can't comment with any authority on how accurate it is, down to a T, as far as location names, the generals, and how they're balanced. I mean, from what I can tell, it seems like they generally derive their numbers from their real life strengths and weaknesses. But we can't say for sure how well all that is incorporated. And obviously, this is a period of history that has been romanticized to a high degree, and I think the game very much leans into that romanticization? Is that the
It would be the word.
romanticizing? With the character art and everything, everyone looks really cool, badass. But I think that's fine. I think it does actually give the game a bit of pizzazz that it's kind of lacking otherwise, at least in stylistically. So yeah, I don't know. I assume enthusiasts of this subject matter would get probably even more out of it, at least in terms of the theme. Yeah. Anything else with the gameplay you guys want to talk about before we talk about the product itself?
I feel like one last I want to reiterate that my favorite thing about the game is just like how all the mechanics, mechanisms, whatever you want to call them, all build upon each other in such a way that it not only makes sense from like a logic standpoint, but from a history standpoint. Because I spent some time researching this lately, and just like little things. What Graham said about earlier about the tribal relations. It's like just because you're fighting a war doesn't mean you forget about the people who rely on you.
Yep.
Just the everyday civilians. You have to remember to give stuff to them. You have to remember to train your armies. You have to remember to arm them,
feed your armies,
pay them.
Yeah.
It's not just a game where you put guys on a board, roll some dice, and determine hits. It's so much more than that.
No. I guess we could talk about. I love the endgame scoring system.
Yeah.
I think it's great. Because you can get a sense of how well you're doing, but you're not gonna know if you've won or not until you've tallied up all the points. Because there's so many different things to keep track of, and I think they all make so much sense. You don't get credit for doing well. In yourself, you also get credit for how well you do in relation to your opponents, which I think is just so brilliant. I think the scoring system also breaks down very well.
It's one of those games where with the scoring, I always feel like I'm doing something, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like it advances my position that much. If you play, one state enhancement card and it's worth 1 victory point, you're like, But then at the end of the game, as they start, you realize all the stuff that you've done, it builds together. You're like, wow, actually, I scored more points than I thought I was going to score.
Yeah.
Yeah, that often happens.
Yeah, I mean...
And I also like that while military VP is very important and usually makes up a good bulk of your points, it's not the end-all, be-all.
No.
That might disappoint certain people who come into this game saying Three Kingdoms, the Three Kingdoms War, do some research on it, they end up buying it, and they think it'll be more like military-focused. And it's like, no, you're playing not just a general, but like a leader. You're going to maintain your whole tribe. And it's
almost like half and half.
Challenge.
It's like half military, half
everything else.
State stuff.
Safe to say we like this game.
Yeah.
How it plays. We can talk about how it looks a little bit here. I don't want to drag out all the components.
Yeah.
I will say, God bless them for all these baggies, because you need every one of them.
Yeah.
So, providing 10 or however many there are is great. The components themselves, kind of mentioned earlier, they're mostly just functional, I would say.
Yes.
There's not much that's going to wow you artistically. The exception, I think, being the cards.
The cards are beautiful.
The generals in particular, I think, are great. The unification, separation, those are nice too. But the generals, they give you a pretty good sense of who these characters are.
Not just their specializations, even some of them have, there's a little insight into who they were personality-wise, or at least who the,
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. And the art, I agree with you. The art on the cards is great. Everything else is just sort of basic, but it doesn't need to be anything.
No, obviously. But
I like the board a lot.
The board, I would say, in terms of design, is fantastic. Yeah. I think it makes great use of iconography. You can play the game with almost ever having to refer to the rule book once you've learned the rules, which is great.
And we need to speak for a moment about how they fit a board game, a full board game, with a weight of over 4 on Board Game Geek, in a box this narrow, or this thin.
It's like maybe an inch and a half. Yeah.
It's like the typical, height and width, but it's just, oh man, is it thin? And that means that's great. I mean, you have to think about people who have limited, shelf space. They have to really pick and choose.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They use their space well. Everything fits, too. It's not one of those things where the lid hangs off a little bit. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know shelf space is a big deal to people.
Yeah, and the compendium's a nice inclusion. The rulebook is generally pretty good. There are maybe going to be a couple instances where you might need to go online to find
specific clarification.
Yeah, but for the most part, it's pretty. I think it's pretty good about detailing rules both explicitly and implicitly.
Yeah.
Will sometimes struggles with that. I find he's very. you like things to be very explicit. Like if you can't do something, you wanted it to say you can't do something instead of just kind of saying what you can do and assuming you can't do anything else.
Yep.
This game kind of leans more in that direction, which I kind of appreciate. It's a bit, it's a bit more, to the point. But should we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Not much more to say. I mean, we've said plenty, lots of praise.
There's so much to say about this game, but
yeah,
like I said, it's
overall, I think this is one of the best games we've played.
Yes.
In general, on the channel, off the channel, anywhere.
Yep.
This is a great game. I would hesitate to ever call a game perfect mechanically, but I feel like this is pretty much as close as we've gotten for at least in a game this heavy,
Yeah.
big. Everything works how you want it to. It's great. I have really no criticisms of the game.
Yeah.
The worst thing I can say about it is that's not the prettiest game in the world. That's about it.
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's the biggest issue, I mean that's you can get away with that. I am going to give this game 5 stars out of 5.
Yeah.
Full 5.
That's big. That's big.
Yeah. No. Yeah. This is a big one.
Yeah. So I don't even. This may be my favorite game that I've ever played.
Wow.
Yeah. This I honestly I'm trying to think of what I like more than this. I probably want to give it a few more plays before I definitively say that. But I this is so well designed.
But you love Yahtzee.
I know. Well, that's what it's between this and Yahtzee. What do I do?
Let's roll some dice. And
I thought it was tic-tac-toe.
well, it's the best looking game.
Tic-tac-toe is
Oh,
great.
that's
Yeah,
right. You don't
best
like the way it
looking-
looks.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. No, but honestly,
It's a great game.
It's so good. It's so good. It's obviously 2 thumbs up for me, but
if you had a third thumb,
it would. Yeah, if I had a third thumb, I would give. I would give it the
sort of
third
mutant freak. Will.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I really enjoy it. I
C++.
have a couple issues with it. I don't want to get in depth.
Could have mentioned that at any point.
Well, I didn't want to. We had a good pace going, D. Good rhythm.
I guess. All right.
But one of my main issues with it is pace. I think it can drag a little bit sometimes because I think no matter how knowledgeable you are of the game, there are going to be moments where someone does something and you have to. Everything you were planning on doing changes, and it's the personal preference.
Yeah.
Is all I'm saying is that sometimes I like games that move quicker, and I can move quicker in because I'm such a meticulous player. So that's one of the few things I don't.
It's definitely not
love.
a short game by any means. I would say it's not beyond the pale for a game of its type. I think it's not unreasonable in that respect.
No, I wasn't saying it's unreasonably long.
But yeah, no, obviously it's just a matter of preference on your part. But I would say to the people at home, I wouldn't say, if you're looking for a heavy game, you kind of expect it to go long, and this game can. But it's not like it shouldn't take half a day or anything. But anyway, Will, sorry. Continue.
That's all right.
We hate your criticism. Move on.
You're wrong. Continue.
That's not the only thing about but ultimately, though, I do like 90% of it, and for that reason, I'm gonna give it an A-.
Okay.
Can you leave him?
An A-.
We should just get rid of him. But this might be the highest scored game we've had on this channel between the 3 of us on average, at least. This is it's definitely up there, at least.
Yeah.
This is we love it. But yeah, so that is our review of Three Kingdoms Redux. We hope you enjoyed watching it. If you haven't checked out the video yet, feel free to go check that out to actually see how it plays. If you like this video, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more content like this every week. Social media links are down below, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram if you want to follow us on those. Yeah, and come back Friday for our next gameplay, whatever that is. I'm not even sure. Something.
It's a game.
We've got some recordings done, whichever one we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah. So look forward to a game. And we should have a list coming out pretty soon, too. So keep an eye out for that, our third Port Crazy Top 10. So, okay, I think it's going to do it for this video, everybody. Until next time. Bye.
Bye. See you next time.